mentioned the idea, or the common tool that the liberal scholars used, where they refer to the Q document. Okay? We've seen that over and over again. And what they say is, Matthew, when he wrote his gospel, he had his own ideas, and then he got a lot of ideas from Q. Okay? And that's from the German word Quelle, which means source. That's just the word that they attach to this unknown document that they say is out there. Okay? And so you need to know that the reason why they want to drill this into your head is because they, as Ben had said, and I think Sal had said also, is they want to make sure that the New Testament was written after 70 AD. Okay? They want to extend it as far out as possible to 80 AD or 90 AD, if they could. Because the further out that they make the writing of the New Testament, what does that mean? That means we have less of a possibility of eyewitnesses who saw the events happen writing them down. Because if it's written out here, okay, and we started at 33 AD, okay, most people probably died around, 60, 70 AD, who were adults in 33 AD. Okay, and then there was another generation that was growing up around this time, and they started to write in 80 and 90 AD, but they weren't eyewitnesses to what had occurred. You see? And that's why the liberals want to stress this idea that the New Testament was written way, way, way long time after Jesus and the apostles were here. Because if you don't have an eyewitness, what is a person who wasn't an eyewitness going to do? He's going to make mistakes. He's going to give his own ideas of what happened. He's going to embellish the accounts. And that's why you heard Ben say over and over again, these liberal scholars were saying, well, the person who wrote this embellished the account, he exaggerated, he's contradicting because he doesn't know the facts, blah, 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 blah. An eyewitness won't do that. An eyewitness was there. He saw it with his own 2 eyes. You see, so if it was written before 70 AD, that means it was written in the generation of Jesus and the apostles. You see? That's the reason why we're stressing this so much. The other thing that we need to know, that I want to recap for you, is eraser up here. The other thing is the idea of prophecy. Okay? If you're a liberal scholar, you have been trained that there is no supernatural in the Bible. Okay? That is a basic premise with which you start when you come to the Bible and you examine it. And thus, everything that you read that has a supernatural slant to it, somehow, some way, you have to neutralize that. And thus, when it says Jesus walked on water, what it really meant for you and I, who know there really aren't any miracles, is that Jesus was walking in shallow water. And the apostles, in order to make Christianity into something great and fantastic for the world to believe, had this penchant to embellish their stories, to say, well, no, Jesus actually walked on water, you see, for the sole purpose of, basically what they're telling us, that the apostles were liars. That's what it boils down to, that these guys are a bunch of liars who could think of no other way because Jesus failed when he died on the cross. That's what the liberal scholars also tell us. The apostles knew that Jesus failed. This is what you'll find in the Da Vinci Code too. Jesus failed, and so there had to be some way to resurrect Christianity, and so we assign miracles in Scripture. So when Jesus fed 5,000 people, they actually brought their own lunches. But the apostles made it sound as if Jesus had miraculously fed them. You see? And any miracle you read in the Old or New Testament will be explained away by some natural event. Okay? That's the same thing also applies to prophecy. Prophecy is a supernatural event. If Daniel's predicting something that occurs into the future, or Zechariah 14 is, or Jesus is, or whoever it is, the only way that can happen is if there's a divine intrusion. And God comes into the mind of that prophet and gives him information that he can't get elsewhere. So to do away with that, what you say is, every time you read of a prophecy in Scripture, what the writer is doing is all he is doing is writing down an event that already occurred, and he's making it look like it was prophecy. You see? So again, they're calling all these writers in the New Testament and the Old Testament liars. That's basically what liberal scholarship is all about. But they won't say that they're liars, you see, because if they called them liars, who would read the footnotes in the New American Bible? If you say, well, this guy's lying here, he's making all this up, nobody would read it. Instead, they say, well, he had a flair for fiction, you know, or he didn't really know everything, and so he just put it in this manner, or whatever way they try to gloss over it to make it sound like they're not really lying to us. But that's exactly what is happening. They're lying to us. So the bottom line in liberal scholarship, if you really want to walk out of here this weekend, is they just don't want to believe that there is a supernatural in Scripture. And that's why all these guys can make mistakes when they write. That's why you have these so-called contradictions. That's why prophecy is not prophecy. That's why the miracles of Jesus aren't miracles, because there is no supernatural. And this all started many years ago with liberal Protestants back in the 1700s and 1800s. And this happened when the Bible got into the universities of Europe. And they wanted to dissect the Bible just like they dissected Homer or Shakespeare or any kind of literature. They wanted to find out the real kernel of truth, you know, because people do embellish things when they write. Humans do that all the time. They do lie. They do tell falsehoods. And what happened was the Bible got put into this mix. Well, if Shakespeare can do it, and Homer can do it, and all these other writers can do it, well, why couldn't the Bible writers do it? You see? And once you've knocked out the supernatural, then these Bible writers are on their own, basically, and they're just like you and I. And so, of course, they're going to make mistakes. Of course, they're going to exaggerate. You know? And they would claim to be analyzing this as a scientific process. You see? We're trying to get to the real truth here, and that's how they convince people. They convince people that Matthew and Mark weren't these supernatural lads that we have come to learn them to be. They were just like you and me. And so if that's the case, then we're really going to help you by showing you where they went wrong. Aren't we doing you a favor by doing that, you see? Aren't we really helping you out by getting to the real truth? And you can cut out all these myths and supernatural things. Okay. Now, last year I had a talk on Father Raymond Brown, and I'm going to continue on with that. I'm going to give you some new material that I didn't give last time. If you want the talk from last time, I do have it on the back table there. It's called The Demise of Catholic Scripture Scholarship. And now I'm going to give you some more information on that very thing. And I've learned that I have to wear my glasses now to read the small print on the lectern here. That's why I have them on. So I hope that doesn't shock you. All right. Well, let's apply the historical critic's newfound view of Scripture to two hotbed issues broiling in the Catholic Church today: women priests and homosexuality. Most liberal Catholics see no problem with allowing both of these to occur. If that shocks you, be prepared. Many Catholics believe that homosexuals are okay, and homosexual marriage is okay, and women priests are okay. With statistics showing up to 50% of the priesthood itself being homosexual, and of those, mostly all welcome the idea of women priests, it is no surprise to see liberal Catholic biblical scholars trying to support these cultural upheavals by a reinterpretation of Scripture. The historical critic will try to convince you that since Scripture contains historical errors, human biases, religious prejudices, and fictional stories, and since Scripture is only free from error when it deals with matters of salvation, then in non-salvific matters, that is, women priests and homosexuality, the Bible is nothing more than an expression of a religious preference and cultural biases active during the time of the biblical writer's writing. Since we in modern times have come of age, as it were, we know that such biases are unecumenical and judgmental. And thus it is high time we change our interpretation of Scripture. Historical criticism is just the needed tool to do the job. For example,